Hello everyone, and today I'll be reading a Tighnari X listener by me. So let's get into it. Tighnari always was reasonable when it came to most things, but sometimes that reasonability of his made you really embarrassed to ask about things that you considered silly or unreasonable from your perspective, or that might be just not, a big deal to him. Maybe he wouldn't get it. Maybe he'd think you're silly or too invasive, and that's why you kind of hesitated in most things. But sometimes your desire outweighed the fear inside of you. Such is the case today, or at least the past few days, because you've been having this conversation with yourself for a while now, ever since you started dating, and perhaps even way before then. However, you decided that with more time, this would have a higher chance of success. Basically, long story short, you wanted to play with his hair, his tail, and most importantly, at least just get to touch his ears once. His tail and ears were so distracting, and the way they were so fluffy, especially his tail, it's just so big and fluffy and you can't help but want to touch it. But, much like a cat, it seemed like Tighnari was not very intent on letting you close his tail. You had obviously never tried to outright touch it, but you could sense that he didn't like that idea. And, of course, you were not going to touch him without permission. You were not going to make him uncomfortable. Besides, he'd be mad at you, right? Perhaps it was sensitive. Or maybe you had no idea, honestly. But you thought it was kind of a big deal, and you had no idea how to approach it. Is it normal that you'd be so fascinated by it? Would you find that annoying? You had zero idea. You know, Gore didn't like that, and even he was a lot nicer when you asked him, but he still let you down. It seemed like everybody had tails and ears. Well, abnormal ears were not very intent on being touched, which is why you hesitated a lot. But you kind of felt like you would either get to do it once or never, so you'd much rather at least take your shot. What's the worst that could happen? He'll say no? Maybe he'll be a little upset for a little bit? It's fine. You can get through it. It won't even last a day. Yeah, it wasn't that easy, but eventually you got around to asking him. As he sat down next to him, fidgeting for a little bit, before he just told you to tell him what he wanted to say, since he sensed that you were nervous, and he wanted you to be able to say what you want. And then shyly, you were able to muster these words. I wanted to touch your tail and ears. He looked at you for a while, completely stunned by the answer, because he didn't see it coming. But then again, he should have expected it eventually, from the way you stared at it. He noticed. He wasn't completely clueless, but what you didn't know was that his ears and tail were quite sensitive. So even though he nodded, he was kind of shy and nervous. And that's when you gently touched his ears, and they were so soft, like a cat's. Honestly, you can't help but just keep scratching behind them. And, much to your surprise, how he acted to it, closing his eyes and letting out a soft sigh. He was so adorable. And then, you got to the point that you've been thinking about for the past 2 days. After all, his tail was quite exquisite, and you were more than excited to just feel those fluffy hairs of his. And as soon as you put a hand on the end of it, you felt like you were touching peace and everything you ever wanted. Oh my god, how can he be so soft and fluffy? Was this your Tighnari? He had no idea. But then, as you began playing with it with a soft smile, he just let out a soft whimper, blushing brightly. Moyan, could you just calm down a little bit? He told you. And he nodded, blushing. He kind of forgot how sensitive he was. Maybe you were not supposed to touch his tail like this. But still, it was a step forward. But after that, he does not mind you touching his tail anymore. He kind of likes it, but it's a little bit too overwhelming, and he's not used to it. Not to mention, the way this part of him was sensitive more than anything else. He's just slowly getting used to the touch there. And you can just go slow, right? You're more than patient, especially if it makes the two of you happy. You will just want him to smile and be okay. And it's not like you're doing this without getting anything else in return. Just being able to see him and feel his tail and ears was better than any reward that you could ask for. Honestly, it was pretty satisfying. And finally, it was the answer to the many questions that you had inside your head. However, this was not the end of it. No. Because the next day, Tighnari shyly asked you to do that again. And then he began kissing you, sitting on your lap. And soon enough, the two of you were making out, your hands still holding his tail. And it kind of went south, north, whatever you may rate it. But you had a lot of time together to spend. And you can tell how it went, right? Needless to say, he needed to take a break the day after, and so did you. That's why Kole made the food for the two of you, thankfully without asking way too many questions. But she was definitely going to tease you and Tighnari about it later. Just not now, because she wanted to take care of you too. Even though Tighnari had told her many times that he was more than fine and could make the food on his own. But she thought he could use a break, and he's more than happy that he's taken it with you.